Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this episode, let's talk about fishing a popper. A popper is a topwater bait, a hard body topwater bait that has this concave mouth here that is made to, spit the water and really keep the bait from moving forward too much. So it stays in the strike zone longer. It is a great bait for especially fishing around the spawn and even the post spawn and around like the bluegill spawn. It is one of my favorite top waters for that spring to late spring time period. But we're out here on this lake, the popper bite's on, so let's go catch some fish and learn how to fish this bait. There's a fish. Right by that beaver hut. And one thing I've learned over the years is there's usually fish around beaver huts. Wow, look at it. He got pegged by something. There we go. Fat little bass on the popper. But that's one of the best things about fishing a popper is it's just such a good spot casting bait. Now when I say spot casting bait, I just mean like you see a stick up or a lay down or something, you cast it right next to it, and it's just really good to stay in the strike zone above those fish and create a lot of commotion and really just overall irritate them. We're gonna move this sideways so you guys can see a little bit better what I'm casting at. Oops, a little bait fish just scattered. We got just a little bit of wind blowing some bait onto this side of the lake. But whenever I'm fishing a popper, I'm just looking for anything that can cast a shadow, or the fish are, if there's still fish spawning or there's like a bluegill spawn or something like that, popper, it does a really good job. Oh gosh, he nailed it. Saw him hit it and take off, so something he didn't like about it. Probably just protecting the bed. But like this willow tree that we got coming up here, this is a key spot. Key type of cover. There's a fish. Decent fish. That was a little bit more in open water. Oh. There we go. He looked a lot bigger than that. Oh yeah, there we go. Come on, baby. I know you're underneath there. If you can get a popper into the shadow of a tree, shade of a tree, that's a pretty big deal. Oh, there he is. Oh! Just did not have it well. I mean, one of the best scenarios really is underneath trees, the shade of trees. Because I think that the fish are underneath there waiting for something to fall down off of those branches, and popper comes in, starts splashing around. It just looks like something that fell off the branch and is struggling to get out of the water. There it is. Textbook. Right there. Whenever you come up to an isolated piece of cover like that little lay down, popper is a really good choice if there's not a lot of like floating vegetation around that can muck it up. But it's so good because you can keep it right above their heads for a long period of time. This and a hollow body frog you know, are very, very similar. But the hollow body frog can be used in thicker vegetation, while, you know, the popper is really good in more open water scenarios with more sparse cover, because your hookup percentage is phenomenal with a popper, usually. Not always, but usually. But that was pretty textbook. It's also a great topwater for the spawn. It's one of my favorites for catching spawning fish that are on the beds, because you can keep it right above their heads for a long period of time. Something as unassuming as this little branch that's sticking in the water right here is a great spot to cast your popper at. Oh man, I see a good target. See a good target, right? Oh, we're a little bit off, but we can probably call him. There we go. What'd I tell you? Right next to that root wad over there. Little guy. But that was fun. And I called my shot. It's just all about like little targets. Little pieces of wood, shadows, you know, shade lines, all that stuff. It's casting that shade line right there. And for me, when I'm working a popper, it's not about like working it all the way back to the boat. It's about casting, you know, making accurate casts to specific pieces of cover, working it, you know, where I think that the fish are around that cover, and then reeling back in. Darn it. Oh, good one. Big fish. Come on. Oh, he's stuck around that. Oh, darn it. Come off. Darn it. Man, that sucks. That sucks. That was like a 5-pounder. Unfortunately, the hook got stuck on that limb when he went underneath. She went in underneath. It happens. It happens. All right, so as far as how I fish a popper, how I work the popper, I see a lot of people casting it out there and they just chug it. They just do these big kind of, you know, pops of the rod tip. It's not really walking, it's not doing anything but just allowing that concave mouth to push a bunch of water and make a nice little pop or splash. All right, now that's one way you can catch fish, is just popping it, letting it sit, pop it again, that sort of thing. But I really like to, the majority of the time, do a little bit of a walk the dog type action with my popper. And so what I'll do is I'll cast it out there at a particular target, let the ripples kind of disappear, and then I'll do short pops of the rod tip, popping slack out of the line and kind of putting slack back in it. And that allows me to work it in one spot for a long period of time, and for that bait to walk side to side. And I really think that action really gets a lot of bites. And so that's kind of how I fish the popper. And you really have to find poppers that will do that. There's some poppers that just don't allow you to walk the dog all that easy. So once you find a brand or a type of popper that allows you to, you know, work it in a spot for a long period of time, walking the dog, you know, that's probably a pretty good popper. You know, back in the day, I don't claim to know everything about Zell Rowland's poppers that he customized, the old Rebel poppers, but he would customize his poppers in a way that allows them to walk the dog a lot easier. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for, is that side to side walking action. And it takes a while for you to get it down, but really it's those just short pops of the rod tip, popping slack out of the line and putting it back in the line. Another key thing to keep in mind with fishing a popper is that it's a target technique. You know, it's a technique where you're casting at specific targets, whether it's you know, shade cast from a tree or a lay down, or a lay down like we have out here, kind of out in the middle of nowhere, or just a stick up or a dark spot on the bottom. Whatever it is, it's a target oriented type of presentation where you're casting to the side of that cover and just working it in place. You're not really working it back to the boat. Like, it's not like a Zero Spook that you cast it out there and you walk the dog all the way back to the boat. It's something that you just cast to an object like this right here, this root wad, work it by that object, and once you get away from that object, you know, just reel it back in and cast to the next target. That's exactly what I'm doing. That I cast into open water for no apparent reason. But like this shadow, the shade line cast by this cypress tree, there's like a stick up right there. I'm gonna work by that real quick, catch a bass. Easy peasy. Oh, the camera was kind of turned so you didn't see that, but essentially I worked this shadowy area. But yeah, I just cast by underneath that shadow, but also next to that little stick up underneath the surface, and caught that bass. And that's what a popper does really well, is just spot casting. It's almost like throwing a wacky rig around during the spring. You're just looking for areas that the fish are you know, bedding next to some type of cover, and you're making specific casts to that cover, working it past real quick, and then making another cast. You're not working all the way back to the boat. Little guy. Man, we're about to start getting some bites. Lots of shade here. It's real calm. You don't want a ton of wind. There's actually some bluegill. I think they're bluegill spawning up shallow. Yep. So that's another thing to look for with a popper bite is, you know, I first start fishing a popper around the bass spawn, but then once the bluegill starts spawning, popper is a great way to imitate those bluegill and to stay right above those bluegill beds. And it's a great way to catch big fish too this time of year. Let's see if there's a big bass around that bluegill bed. I mean, there are a ton of bluegill. All right, buddy, that does it for today, fishing the popper. The popper is a wonderful bait for this time of year, and really anytime when you can catch fish on top water, the popper is really good, but springtime is the deal for fishing a popper. So anyways, guys, if you have any questions about fishing a popper, or you want me to cover a topic of your choosing in a future video, drop a comment below. Also, check out the links in the description below for all the tackle that I used today, and also make sure you hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this content. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna see you out on the water. Trust the process, everybody.